All right, let's jump into another deep dive. And today, we're going deep into the world of Spanish question words.
Ooh, spicy.
You know, even if you don't speak any Spanish at all, stick with us.
Yeah,
This one is going to be a fun one, I promise.
I agree.
So we're going to be using a YouTube video from a Spanish tutor named Jaime as our guide today.
Okay.
And it's amazing what you can learn about language just by taking a close look at question words.
It is.
Like how we form questions, the kinds of information we seek.
Yeah,
It can really tell you a lot about a culture and how its people think.
absolutely. Like, how do we even conceptualize asking something?
Right. So our source today, Jaime's video, is basically a Spanish lesson for English speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And he focuses on the 8, what he says, most basic question words in Spanish.
Okay.
But what I found interesting is that he also mentions that in Spanish, these question words are also called interrogatives,
Right, yeah.
or sometimes even less 6Q.
Yeah.
Now, why 6Q if there are 8 of them?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's probably a shortcut, you know.
Mhm.
Focusing on like the 6 most common question words that you'd use every day.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just a way to make it easier to remember them, like a mnemonic device.
No, that's interesting, like a little memory trick.
Right, exactly.
Clever.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's get to the words themselves, shall we?
let's do it.
Jaime starts off with qué, which means what in English.
The classic.
Yeah, pretty simple, right?
Right.
He explains that you use qué when you're asking about things in general.
Gotcha.
So, like, one of the examples he gives in the video, instead of asking, how old are you? In Spanish, you would actually ask, ¿Qué edad tienes?
Interesting.
Which literally translates to, what age do you have?
Huh.
So that difference, even in that one question, is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because in English, we're focusing on the person, you,
Right.
but in Spanish, the focus shifts to the possession,
Uh-huh.
the age.
Yeah, it's like what age you possess.
Yeah, like it's a thing.
And it just subtly highlights how language can actually like shape how we think about things.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that example. That's a good one.
Whoa, right.
Yeah.
I'd never even thought about it like that before.
I know, it's fascinating.
It's so cool.
It is.
Okay, so next up on the list is quién, which means who.
Another good one.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, you would think,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But here's the curveball.
Oh.
Quién has a plural form, quién.
Ah.
And to make it even more tricky, that plural form actually changes how you have to conjugate the verb in the sentence.
Right, right.
So if you wanted to ask about one dad, you would say, ¿Quién es tu padre?
Okay.
But if you're asking about two parents, it becomes, ¿Quién son tus padres?
So the verb has to agree. It has to match whether you're talking about one person or multiple people.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, moving right along, to ask where something is, we have ¿Dónde?
Okay.
Now, what's cool about this one is that Spanish also has the question word ¿a dónde?, which is literally to where.
Oh, interesting.
It's like they have this built-in way to emphasize the direction of movement, you know?
Right, like it's baked right into the language.
Yeah.
That's real cool.
Like, can you imagine saying, to where are you going in English?
It sounds so weird.
It sounds so strange.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting to the tricky one, so buckle up.
All right, I'm ready.
¿Por qué? Which means why.
The dreaded why.
Now, what's interesting about this one is that it's two separate words,
Okay.
and it has an accent mark over the E.
That little tilde.
Yes, and that's super important because porque, written as one word without the accent mark, means because.
Oh, that's right.
It's like the difference between let's eat grandma and let's eat grandma.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Punctuation can really change things.
That's hilarious.
Right. One tiny accent can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
So Jaime gives a good example in the video. He says, ¿Por qué te vas? Which means, why are you leaving? And then, of course, the answer would use ¿por qué? Without the accent, like porque tengo que irme, meaning because I have to leave.
Yeah, because I have to go.
Exactly.
And it's so interesting how Spanish makes that distinction when in English we just use why for both.
Right. We don't have separate words for the question and the answer.
Yeah, it's just why all the way.
Why? Why?
Why?
Okay, let's keep going. We're on a roll here.
Let's do it.
Cuándo, meaning when.
Okay, when.
This one's all about time, so you've got ¿Cuándo vendrás? When will you come?
Uh-huh.
¿Cuándo llegará el verano? When will summer arrive? You know,
All the big questions a lot.
all the big questions.
Yeah, yeah.
It really makes you wonder how the way we talk about time in different languages
Mm-hmm.
affects how we actually perceive it, right?
It's a deep thought, isn't it?
That's a very deep thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to cuál, meaning which.
Okay, which
Also has a plural form, cuáles. Jaime makes a point in the video to stress that cuál is for asking about specific information, like you're asking for a specific item,
Gotcha.
from a set of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when asking someone's name in Spanish,
Okay.
you would use ¿Cuál es tu nombre? Instead of ¿qué?
So not what is your name, but which is your name.
Yeah, apparently using ¿qué there would just sound weird
Interesting.
to a Spanish speaker.
It's like they're asking you to pick your name out from a lineup.
Yeah, like Cor is asking for a specific name from a set of possible names.
Right, like choosing from a list.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
While in English, we just use what for everything.
What? What?
What's your name?
Right, it's just what.
It's just what.
I like how Spanish is very specific.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're on to, I think this might be the trickiest one of all.
The
word with many different personalities, cuánto, which means how much or how many.
Okay, how much or how many?
This one has masculine, feminine, singular, and plural forms.
Oh boy.
Cuánto, cuánto, cuántos, cuántos.
Wow, that's a lot to keep track of.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually a grammatical feature that you see in a lot of Romance languages.
Uh-huh.
So basically, the form of cuánto you use has to agree with the noun that you're modifying.
Okay, like matching.
Yeah, you've got to match it.
Matching game.
Exactly. It's like a little matching game.
That's fun.
So, for instance, if you're asking about la casa, the house, which is feminine,
Okay.
you would use cuánta. So you would say, ¿Cuánto vale la casa? How much is the house worth?
Gotcha.
But if you're talking about niños, children, which is masculine and plural,
Okay.
you would say, ¿Cuántos niños hay en tu casa? How many children are in your house?
So you've got to make sure your cuánto matches the name you're asking about.
You got it.
I'm starting to get it.
You're getting it. You're doing great.
All right, what's next?
Okay, last but not least, we have cómo, which means how.
How?
This one's all about figuring out how something's done. So Jaime gives the example. ¿Cómo viajas a Londres? How do you travel to London?
I like that one, yeah?
You're not asking about the destination. You're asking about the method.
Yeah, the how-to.
Exactly, the how-to of travel.
Very cool.
So before we move on, I have to ask you, did you notice anything interesting about all these Spanish question words we've just talked about?
Well, they all seem to have that little squiggle above one of the vowels, you know?
Oh, you mean the tilde?
Yeah, the tilde.
You got it. So Jaime points out in the video that all of these Spanish question words, when they're used in a question, have a tilde.
Fascinating.
And it's not just about stressing the right syllable when you say the word out loud.
Right.
The tilde actually visually marks them as questions. Like it's a little flag saying, hey, this is a question.
It's like a secret code.
It's like a secret code for making your questions extra clear.
I love it.
Right. So, to recap what we've learned so far.
All right, let's read.
We've got qué for what, quién and quiénes for who, dónde for where, por qué for why, cuándo for when, cuál and cuáles for which, cuánto in all its many forms for how much or how many, and cómo for how.
It's like a mental checklist for any aspiring Spanish speaker.
It is.
Awesome.
And, you know, in the video, Jaime really encourages viewers to actually use these words in real sentences.
Good advice.
He says that's the best way to really understand them, you know?
Oh, absolutely. You can't just memorize words. You have to use them.
Right. Like, get them out there in the wild.
Exactly.
You got to practice.
That's the key.
Yeah, use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it. That's right.
So what does all of this mean for you, our listener?
Good question.
Even if you never plan on being fluent in Spanish,
Yeah.
I think there's a bigger takeaway here.
Absolutely. Like the way we ask questions, it really shapes how we understand the world around us.
Oh,
Every language has its own special ways of finding out information. And by looking at those differences, we can start to appreciate just how complex and diverse human thought really is.
like each language gives you a different lens to look at reality?
Exactly. And learning a new language is like getting a new set of lenses.
Oh, I like that.
It broadens your perspective. It challenges your assumptions about how things work.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, I never thought of it that way before.
It's mind-blowing.
It is.
So even if you never speak a word of Spanish, hopefully this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the power of language and how we use it to understand the world around us.
I hope so. It's fascinating stuff.
It really is.
It is.
And maybe, just maybe, It's even sparked some curiosity to explore other languages and see what kind of crazy quirks and intricacies they have to offer.
Who knows what we might discover out there?
I know, right? It's an adventure waiting to happen.
Exactly. I mean, it's like adding a whole other layer of meaning.
Yeah, it's like a visual cue to really drive the point home.
Right, like, hey, pay attention, I'm asking something here.
Yeah, exactly. So just to quickly recap everything we've gone over so far.
Okay, hit me with it.
We've got qué for what, can, and then quiénes for who.
Right.
Dónde for where, por qué for why, cuándo for when, cuál, and the plural cuáles for which. Then we've got all those forms of cuánto, cuántos, and cuántas for how much or how many.
Right. I love those.
And last but not least, cómo for how.
It's like a whole arsenal of question words.
It is. It's like our little toolbox for exploring the Spanish language.
Love it.
And you know what else Jaime mentions in the video?
What's that?
He really emphasizes the importance of actually using these words
Oh, yeah.
in real sentences.
Of course, you can't just learn them in isolation.
Right, like get out there and practice.
Exactly. You got to use them in context.
He says that's the best way to really get a feel for them.
He's absolutely right.
Like you can memorize all vocabulary you want.
Yeah, you can make flashcards and everything.
Right, but until you actually start using the words.
Yeah, in real conversations.
It's not going to stick.
Exactly. You've got to put them into practice.
So thinking about all this, what does it really mean for you, the listener?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is, and I think even if you never plan on becoming fluent in Spanish,
Right.
there's a big takeaway here.
Oh, absolutely. Like the way we ask questions,
Yeah.
it really shapes how we understand the world around us.
It's like we're constantly framing our reality.
Exactly.
Oh.
And every language has its own unique way of doing that, you know?
It's like each language gives you a different set of tools for exploring the world.
That's a great way to put it, like different lenses for looking at reality.
Right. And so by paying attention to these differences,
Oh.
we can start to appreciate just how diverse and complex human thought really is.
I love that.
It's a whole new world opens up.
It really does.
So even if you never actually speak a word of Spanish,
yeah,
hopefully this deep dive is at least giving you a new appreciation
for sure.
for the power of language
It's incredible how much it influences us.
and how we use it to understand the world around us.
Absolutely. It shapes our entire reality.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe this deep dive has even sparked a little curiosity
I hope so.
to explore other languages,
Right. To see what other crazy quirks are out there.
to see what kind of interesting ways they have of asking questions.
It's an adventure waiting to happen.
It is. There's a whole world of language out there just waiting to be explored.
Exactly. And who knows what we might discover.
Yeah, it's like we don't even realize how much our language is shaping our thoughts.
It's happening all the time under the surface.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you stop and think about it.
It is.
Like, remember how we talked about K?
Yeah, yeah.
How it focuses on the possession instead of the person?
Right. Like, what age do you have? Instead of how old are you?
It's such a small difference, but
But it changes the whole emphasis.
it totally does.
It's like in Spanish, the age is almost like this separate thing.
Yeah, it's like it has its own existence.
Right. It's not just a characteristic of the person. It's something they possess.
Exactly. And it just gives you a glimpse into a whole different way of thinking about ownership and identity.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And then there's a dónde. Like,
Oh, yeah, the to where.
it's like they have this built-in way to emphasize directionality that we don't really have in English.
It's like they're always thinking about movement, about where things are going.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there.
And it just shows how language can shape even our most basic perceptions of space and time.
It's really mind-blowing.
It is.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today into Spanish question words,
Yeah,
we want to leave you with a little something to think about.
a little food for thought.
Exactly. So even if you don't speak any Spanish at all,
Right.
we encourage you to think about the other languages you might know.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have any interesting or unique ways of asking questions?
It's a great question to consider. Like, how do those linguistic differences actually shape the way speakers of those languages see the world?
Yeah, like how does the structure of a question influence the type of answer we're even looking for?
Right. It's all connected.
It really is. So keep those questions swirling around in your head.
Let them simmer.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive has sparked a curiosity to explore Spanish or other languages a bit further.
You never know what you might find.
It's a whole world of discovery out there.
It really is.
So happy questioning, everyone.
Keep those questions coming.